We can do this the easy way, or we can do this the hard way. Hey, I'm Carrie French, author of Without Disruption, a dystopian sci-fi novel about a futuristic utopia that guarantees mild contentment by committing to the highly specific lifestyle of your choice. Our main character, Harrison, isn't content in the society that he's born into, nor is he content in the second, nor is he in the third. And as he starts to dig into the truth about his new world, he begins to run out of options. The ebook, audiobook, and paperback, signed if you'd like, are available for pre-order at my website, carriefrenchauthor.com, and the book will officially release on January 10th, 2022. So, as a first-time author self-publishing my novel, I've learned a lot of things along the way, a lot, and I guarantee that I'm still not done making discoveries and figuring things out. But here are some of the things I wish I knew before I started self-publishing my book. First off, writing the book was not the hardest part. Granted, I'm a professional writer. I write every single day for a living. That is my full-time job. But as a copywriter, writing business marketing copy, that's a very different kind of writing. But still, I am incredibly proficient and incredibly fast, which are two skills that definitely lent itself to my success in the actual writing of the book. You hear stories all the time about authors who spent months, if not years, writing their manuscript, hacking away with 15 minutes a day after work trying to hit their page count goals. And I knew for sure that that was not how I wanted this process to go. Instead, I did it my way, and I wrote my entire first draft of my book, which was 62,000 words at its beginning phase, in less than 2 weeks. Writing the actual book is actually very low on the list of hard things I've had to do during this process. Little inspirational side note here really quick. When I was a kid, maybe like around 4th grade, 5th grade, I made an illustrated bucket list of all the things I wanted to accomplish in my life. And I put a lot of big goals on there, like getting a full ride to college, being interviewed by a magazine, writing a novel, traveling to 10 different countries, that kind of stuff. And I remember thinking that that list was just crazy. It's the ultimate bucket list of stuff you don't actually expect you're gonna do in your life, but would be really cool if you did. And when I look back and realize that I have checked them off, it's oddly baffling. And maybe not in the exact way that I thought it might happen when I was, 10 years old, but still, it has happened. And I think that there's a lot to be said about committing to really big, lofty goals and writing them down and committing them in a place where you can actually go back to it and remember it and have accountability with your past self. And I've lost the paper some point over the years, but I have this very clear memory of what it looked like, what was on it, and how I felt when I was setting those goals for my life. And they weirdly continue to push me forward to this day. So if you also think that writing and publishing a novel is this crazy, baffling, out there, impossible bucket list task, maybe just, consider putting it on the list, and maybe you'll see that it actually does get checked off. Back to the list. I wish I knew how sucky the traditional publishing agency world, whatever, is. I've read a lot of good stories and experiences from authors who did get traditional publishing deals, got signed, they got their books published, they're like, hurrah. But I've read even more really frustrating accounts of people who were either completely blocked at the gates, like me, and even those who got signed with traditional publishing deals but were very disappointed with the lack of respectful pay and also just having to be expected to still do all of the work. Going into this, I honestly thought that if you couldn't get a traditional book deal, it was because your book wasn't good. And that is so judgy of me to say, but honestly, that's the opinion I came into this with. I thought, querying 50 literary agents, sure, the majority of them will say no to me, but that's just because it's not a good fit for them. I'm going to be able to choose the right fit for me. I'm going to have some power in this process. Wrong. I queried to 50 agents, all of whom I did substantial research on, all of whom I queried the right way. I did my research. I made my pitch. I followed all the advice. And I got generic auto rejections from less than half of them. More than half never responded. And honestly, that was so baffling. That was not at all what I expected. Even in my worst case scenario, I did not expect that. And call it hubris or whatever, but I know that my novel is good. I know it was good in its form back then. I know it's much better now. I don't know why it is so impossibly difficult to go through the right channels to access the traditional publishing industry that so dominates everything. Which brings me to my next point. I did not know that there are a lot of things that only traditionally published novels have access to, which I guess I should have figured that out. I should have assumed that. You know, beyond the literal just resources of like having a team of people, established marketing channels, and just the experience of having done this publishing thing before, there's also just a lot of tools and resources and perks that self-published authors just do not get. So in two very small but very real examples, last year I pre-ordered a paperback on Amazon and it shipped to me on pub day. It was really easy. It was cool. So when I was setting up my pre-orders, I thought that was possible. But no, I learned that that fancy little trick is only reserved for traditional publishing agencies. I can list my ebook for pre-orders on Amazon, but no one can leave a review on it until it's officially on published day. Traditional publishers, yeah, somehow they have access to that handy little feature. And when I was looking into, book list submissions, recommendation websites, marketing programs, award entries, I found over and over and over roadblocks that prevent authors from submitting their own books. But you know that well-connected book agents have those connections behind the scenes and are making those submissions to then snag deals for their clients. It's just that the door isn't open to anybody else unless you're in that inside industry track, which is honestly just really frustrating. Maybe you could say that's fair. And the last thing is that I didn't realize I was gonna spend this much money. It can be really expensive or it cannot be expensive at all. Again, do you want to do this the hard way or the easy way? You can choose to not hire a proofreader or editor. You can choose to just export your Word document into a PDF. You can just use a stock photo for your book cover. Personally, I chose the hard way. I guess I wanted to do this the right way. I keep saying to myself, and when I explain this stuff, that I want to do it like traditional publishing quality and methods as much as possible, just through self-published channels. And whether that's really the right way, I'm gonna find out. So tallying up my expenses, it's a doozy. They're mostly just big ticket items. Like I spent $2,000 approximately on beta reading, line editing, and proofreading. Ordering 500 copies of the book, this beauty right here, that cost $2,500. I also designed and ordered merchandise to go with my book merch. That was $1,600 of an investment to have shipped to me so that I can send that out with my pre-orders and sell that merch. And I've also spent about $1,200 for marketing opportunities and placements once the book actually is published for January. And then there's just a bunch of other random expenses like website hosting, purchasing ISBNs, a virtual address so I don't have to tell the entire world where I live when I ship stuff out, book formatting software, etc. So all in all, my total spend is just under $10,000. Yeah, I really need someone to buy my book, please. But for real, I am confident that everything I've invested in so far is like well spent. I don't think I stupidly invested in anything. I don't think that I spent money on something that isn't delivering value for this project. Even if it's not paying itself back very quickly, the hope is it will pay itself back eventually. Who knows? I don't know. At least I've got some decent business expenses to deduct for next year, right? And I should mention that although many of those things were not necessary, I could have chosen to not do a physical print run, so I could not do signed copies to ship out. I could have not done book merch. I also could have spent a lot more on things by outsourcing, but instead I chose to do them myself. For example, I designed all of my own book merchandise based on the initial concept art and cover illustrations that I did hire someone for. But once I got those materials, I repurposed them and I created all of the merch myself. Didn't have to pay for that. I also designed, created, and scheduled all of my own social media marketing. Very easily could have just copped out and hired a social media manager for that. I also designed my own website and I host it and manage it myself. I narrated my audiobook and edited it myself. I only had to get help with the last stage of final mixing and mastering because that was just a little too outside of my comfort zone. But the rest of it I did myself. So all of those things and more that I didn't think of to list right here could have been outsourced to service providers, could have been additional expenses that I put on myself. But instead, I knew that I wanted to be really hands-on, not only for cost saving, but also just because I love to learn new skills and I love to immerse myself so fully in the projects that I take on. 2 honorable mentions that aren't worth going into total detail for. Number 1 is I wish I knew how confusing and expensive shipping is. And also just how far you have to plan things out in advance. I thought I was being incredibly foresight planning oriented, and still deadlines feel like they're creeping up so fast. Even considering the immense frustration of the querying process, even, the financial investment that I put into this, and just the low level stress of hoping that it's gonna take off and turn into something and not be a big flop. Hoping that I don't have a closet full of 500 books and a bunch of merchandise that I can't sell. Still, so worth it. I'm just so genuinely proud of myself for accomplishing this, for doing it at a high level and doing it in a way that I'm really, really proud to share. And I have no regrets. No regrets so far in this process. So if you're considering self-publishing your novel, if you're still in the ideation phase, the writing phase, the editing phase, the marketing phase, whatever, that is my personal experience and some things I really wish I knew before publishing a book. But now that I've done it, I think I'm okay with having figured that out along the way. And don't forget to check out my dystopian sci-fi novel, Without Disruption. Like I said, I need somebody to buy this goddamn book.